Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Really appreciate the elders giving an opportunity to take this class hour to share with you about our trip and to give you a little update on the work going on over at the Bible Training Center with FACE, with Benin in general. Feedback. I tell you though, God's doing so much, and there was so much involved in this trip that you have to really be picky and choosy of what all you share. But there's a lot that I couldn't delete. So I'll try not to go too deep into a lot of different areas. And rather than just giving a journal approach of here's what we did every day, and here's the breakfast we had, and here's the fun trip to the place, we simply don't have an opportunity to do all that. But there's a lot of good stories. So I always welcome an opportunity to share those with you. Jumping right into it, as we plan this trip, and this is something that we try to do each year, the FACE Foundation allocates resources for board members to go each year, and we'll continue to plan these trips. But it's important to really set our objectives of what we're trying to do, because there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of good things there too, and we have to be focused. So our main objectives is to encourage and engage the staff and the students. They're doing the evangelism on the field, if you will, and that's really the big part of our program. This is done natively. But when we go, obviously we take part in that some, but we're there to encourage, to engage with them, and it does encourage them greatly. But I tell you, the blessing is you come back on fire, and you see God working every day, and it just firms your faith tremendously. BTC development, both in terms of what's been done and checking in on that, as well as future plans with the campus, with the school, the programs. We've got some new things that have come on, so we'll be sharing those today as well. Program assessment and planning. When we go there, we want to get our hands on the ground with the Irene Morgan Legacy Fund, the church building, and the Bible distribution, the Gospel Chariot. There's a lot of things that are happening outside of campus, if you will, and so it's just a way for us to be more engaged in that shared oversight. Stakeholder experience, meaning the church sponsors, the donors, just those who are interested, elderships. The key objective of this trip is to get folks there who haven't been a part of it. Any of you, as well as other churches, some of them have supported this work ongoing, and we get to visit when George is here, but they've not actually been on campus, and that's a game changer. It just reaffirms that program, and they see a lot of ways to get involved. So we want to do that, and most importantly, glorify God with our activities and our involvement. Team this year, as you know, Mary Rowe went, and we appreciate all those prayers, and I thank Mary as well for all that she did, and kind of helping watch over me too in a way sometimes, and so it really it was a blessing, and I appreciate you. Jason Bramblett, you may be familiar with the Bramblett Group out of Henderson, Tennessee, and they're the agency that does the marketing for Freed Hardeman, the video, the print, and a lot of the PR. But Jason himself is an elder at Jacks Creek Church of Christ and has a heart for missions, and so he went in more or less of a dual role, one to participate in the work, but also to build a library. And he's going to be doing a few projects for FACE right off the bat, and that may be something we continue working relationship with, because as this program has grown, having that type of professional marketing and PR will only help share this message. And quite frankly, that's the key piece. Folks that hear it, if they see it, if they're exposed to it, they get involved because it's fruitful. God's blessing it. He's going to continue to bless it if we do our part. His son Drew accompanied him. Marlon Wood, you know Marlon, but you may also, I don't know if everyone knows, he is the minister out at the Bethel Church of Christ, and Bethel is a supporter of this work and has actually provided funds for 2 church buildings, and Stacy Overby from Bethel Church serves on the FACE board as well. So Marlon went. Todd Kempton, who's a FACE board member, and now he was in White House down at where Jay Lockhart is at, but Todd has now accepted a full-time preaching role, And so he is at the Van Church of Christ in Van, Texas. And so he went along with myself. But we also had a couple other team members. We had an MVD award for the most valuable driver going to Don Frick. And can't thank you enough again, Don. What a blessing that was, both in terms of logistics of getting that many adults and that much luggage and all that's involved. But we went out in and out of Atlanta, both for cost and ease and everything. And Don provided round trip, both directions, and especially coming back. It was hard to walk a straight line. There was a lot of fatigue and different things. So Don, thank you for that. And the one thing I want to share about that is when I called and asked, I was expecting a yes or a no. I'll just make a direct ask on it. And all I heard back was, what time we leaving? It wasn't even a question in Don's mind. So thank you. And that's a good example of a servant's heart. We also had what I'd consider a virtual attendee and participant. Bill Morgan, it was great having you on FaceTime and some of the other technology to get a walkthrough of some of the areas of campus. Here he is in George's office having a good conversation with him. So through the miracle of technology, we try to do a little everything. On campus, so we're going to break this down not by day, but just by components. And one of the big pieces is the school, campus. And again, through technology, Jason Bramlett brought a drone. And so we've got some good footage and some things that are in the hopper. But I want to share with you briefly, if you've not been to campus, or even if you have, you'll see a lot of changes. This should be a short flyover and fly-through. As you walk through the gates there, there's a perimeter wall around all the campus now, 18 acres. And anyone who has been there, I'm assuming this looks a lot greener than what you might remember it. They've done a lot of work on the yard and the ag program. This is mainly coming into the front. That big area in the middle is where graduation takes place, and kind of a commons area, if you will. See some of the classrooms, the general purpose room. Here you begin to see part of the agricultural program. And the crops, just fantastic. Entering the picture is the married housing, the Addison Apartments. That is the 10-unit apartment complex, if you will, for married housing to reunite families and to allow to not just be a men's-only dorm for 3 years. So a personal thank you as well to all of you who are participating in that. Many in this church made a gift to make that possible, including the eldership. And this is some of the fruits of what came out of that. Sometimes when you get up high like that, you see things you didn't notice on the ground or notice before. We found a little soccer field they're using out there too. So you'll see that next to the highway up there. This is the guest house, and this is the Irene Morgan guest house, and this was completed almost a year and a half ago, I believe, 2 years. But this is a remarkable thing because there's comfortable facilities, and as Americans, hey, we're not going to be bashful. We like some level of comfort. And things have improved there, but 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, and just served as a wonderful housing facility for our group and for any guests that come in. So we just wanted to share that with you, and there's a lot of stories with that, but I'm going to keep moving. To me, the biggest thing, even the new buildings or the facilities or the help, what struck me the most about what's changed at the Bible Training Center is this scene right here. Is the families, is the children playing, it's the father and the son, it's these future preachers, it's families, and it's a total different feel and atmosphere. and praise God for that. And that's just a step in the right direction and will open up so many new things. It just struck me as well, these are the tools they're using for that ag program. Now, they do have some and others, but there's a lot of hard work involved. So, as you know, the groundskeeping as well. And FACE did provide some battery-powered trimmers and pole saws and some things to help with ground maintenance, because before that was done literally by machete. So sometimes, and that's one of the things that comes out of these trips, is we see some things that we don't necessarily want to Americanize, but we certainly can offer a way to maybe do things more efficiently. And to their credit, it's not that they come and ask and demand it. It's just we see an opportunity like that, and folks get involved. Even the livestock, there's some hogs there on campus. The chickens are multiplying, but they also eat them as quick as they come around. So the ag program, though, is healthy and good. Here's something as well, and I wasn't aware of this. I knew the water was great. Now, we drink bottled water there, but the well is clean, wonderful water. So much so that they open that to the community. So the gates are closed more or less, except for in the mornings, and members of the community, and there were countless of them, I didn't get a picture right offhand, coming in and pumping fresh water. And there's a lot of symbolism in that. People are coming to the BTC to get living water. And that says a lot. That says a lot about their willingness to do it. And it's just one of those neat things if you really pay attention to blessings and how God is involved with certain works. From a facility standpoint, this is a new building. Now, I say building, it's because the work's been blessed, we needed a storehouse. And so this was constructed as more or less a out barn or an outbuilding for storage, for equipment, and to keep things secure. Now, you know the motorbikes, if you're familiar with Benin, and how that is the primary mode of transportation. But what that means is it's how students go out on a Wednesday to participate with a congregation, to preach. That's how they make transportation to and from the bank sometimes, or the market. Essentially having that transport. This was the fleet. So this was the fleet for a staff, and then the 3 student motorbikes. As part of a development plan at the last board meeting, the FACE Foundation invested over $75,000 in, and I just share that with you, not from the dollar standpoint, but to let you know that the work's actively being managed. Motorbikes were part of that development plan, as well as some other things I'll show. But there's a fleet of 10 motorbikes, as well as for staff. And if you can see on there, that's the FACE CFB1, and we have FACE CFB2. CFB is Center Formation Biblique, which is in French for Bible Training Center. Laptops for the instructors on campus, full-time instructors. That was, again, part of that development, along with some displays and just some modern technology for the administration and the secretaries. Share this with you. 2 gentlemen there, Achille Tadego and Joseph. And one is a staff member. Joseph is kind of a right-hand man for George. This was a meeting I had with those 2 guys, and they've both been very active and involved with anything. When George is here and we need a photo or we need something for a presentation or just anything on the ground, Joseph, the guy in the yellow, is the guy, and he always gets it done. But we're going to be working together in a capacity of photography, PR, if you will. They've got shared folders now so that stuff that's taking place out in the field or on campus, these gentlemen, it's just basically a way they've volunteered to step up with a little bit of direction that will help us keep things moving. So it's just a great resource, and I just shared the work that they're doing. We saw a little progress all around, one of which was a new sign for the facility. And some of that has to do with the construction and the government. They needed to move the wall, but this was taking place. And I think it's just symbolic of bright horizons ahead for the work. You know, what was started here at Benton has grown, and I guess the the way to really test it is to say we couldn't stop it if we wanted to. If the mandate came down to pull the plug on this work, it's not going to, because the churches are autonomous. The preachers are out there doing their deal, and there's probably 10,000 Christians now across 11 countries. How do you stop that? God says you can't. So just sharing you again the fruits of that wise involvement from the front and your continued support. Part of what we did during the trip was 2 new buildings to dedicate, to do more or less a formal piece around. So the tent goes up in Benin. If something's going to be opened or dedicated, the tent goes up. Now the first building is the French African Christian Education Building. And that is a new classroom. Typically the other classroom would have 4 units. This has 2 because they're larger. And primarily that will be for the vocational training. And that's one of the key differences with FACE, and even some of the guests from Ghana who are there that are involved with other works. They said this is what's unique about this, is that you're taking a holistic approach, and not just preacher training, but equipping them with job skills and developing and education so that they can become self-supportive. And that's a big part of what this building will do. The computer repair, the cell phone repair. The other half geared more towards women's education and skills for them as well. And so that's coming together, and you'll hear more information about the curriculum that's involved, and we're still equipping it out. At the dedication, I just wanted to share one piece of a message that I shared on behalf of FACE. Many people spoke. But that is that this was not a gift from the Americans. And it is not about because Americans provide financial support that they are indebted to us. It's that we're all working together for the Lord's work. And that each person, and I even shared down to kids 6 years old that maybe gave $1 towards this project, and there was, that everyone just made a decision to honor God and to put their faith in action, all the way to the plumbers and the carpenters that were working the night before this thing opened, and that we're all just working together doing each part that we can for God. This is a shot of the French African Christian Education Building. Again, that's a multi-classroom unit. And from the opening, a lot of lives were touched and will continue to be touched. As the doors opened, the new desks were still drying with the varnish, and still some are yet to be made. But the computers that are in there, this is not a computer lab. This is a working lab for computer repair, cell phone repair technology. But just a lot of joy in seeing that they have this resource available. As I said, these desks are coming online, and that's something that, as you think, if you may want to get involved in helping this particular piece on campus, I'd like to talk to you about that and ways that maybe then when you go or your kids go, they could see your name and involvement on one of these desks. The other building is the married housing, the Addison Apartments. It's a shot from the drone that you all saw. That's a 10-unit facility, and school is at capacity, and so who knows down the road. But there are more married students than are housed there now, but they're all being used to capacity. One of the speaking elements there during this event was they asked some families to come up and share what it meant to them and their experience with this housing, and it was blowing away. And they said it's changed their lives, and the preachers were happy, and boy, those wives were happy with the having it. Many of them, of course, were separated for a long period of time, or had moved and basically had a one-room apartment they were renting and sleeping on the floor, all in one room. And so they all shared how that's helped their family life and their marital life and everything else. And this lady, for example, and she was kind of stole the show, but she said that they were so overjoyed to have this housing that when they first opened the door, they said that they were going to make a new preacher right away. And she's about 3.5 months pregnant, and it's been open for 3.5 months. And so everybody was pleased with that. And you do see a lot of children. Again, that's a big change there. We see future preachers, and again, that's the impact of having that, as well as opening more dorm space for more students. To have a good working bathroom and water, and basically one room and one bedroom. So they're not luxury apartments, but they are certainly a good high standard for there, and it's done right. One of the other pieces on campus was a ladies' class, and so now with the ladies there, and as that will continue to grow, and Mary took part in that, and she shared a class lesson on Mary and Martha, and focused more on listening to God and how the preachers' wives need to do their own study and need to strengthen their own faith and not just rely on what the husband may be getting to encourage them. And I know that was a great experience for them, and I think Mary really enjoyed that as well. All the wives and the ladies that were on campus were present for that. Another part is banquets. As graduation is approaching, it's been a tradition, so the students and their wives, their family, were treated to a banquet-style meal that was catered in, and as you can see, the fish and the chicken, and among other things. And so it was just a very good event. I just want to acknowledge Bill Morgan for his role in making that tradition happen, as well as making it possible, continued. So we thank him for that. Here's the folks that were there and in their shirts for the graduation. One of the things that we also conducted while we had the videography there and while we had these students is student interviews, exit interviews, if you will, to hear from each student their story, where they plan to go, the things that donors and that potential donors and people who are already involved are interested in, to know at the individual level what this training has meant to them, but what fruit it can continue to bear. And the stories were remarkable, as you would imagine. From going into some hostile areas to having underground churches to a second generation student who's going to follow his father's footsteps, and just wonderful stories. So you'll be seeing that as it's produced. You know, we did eat a lot of freeze-dried and peanuts and different things, but when we did get to that restaurant, I will give Mary an award for the largest calzone I've ever seen in my life, and she really put a hurting on it. So just a good evening. And then for the staff as well, a banquet at the Living Stones restaurant for the staffs and their wives. So Bill, again, thank you for that evening. Want to move ahead into the graduation as we have 50 students training at full capacity, and 12 graduated this year. So that's 12 that go. And now the next class is going to be around 21 to 22, which will be the largest class that's ever graduated. So praise God for that. That's on a Sunday on campus, and that's really the highlight of the week. Certainly the largest event in their lives. It would start with a worship service. So a little over 1,000 natives, the local church there, the family members. The singing's amazing, very uplifting, and worship is sincere and done correctly, and we're just thankful to be a part of that ahead of the graduation. And this gentleman, and I think Mary could attest, this is Gabriel from the Congo. And Gabriel would ride with us in the back of the vehicle, and if you didn't look back, you didn't even know he was with us. And he's an incredible guy, and the work they're doing in the Congo, that's a very difficult area, but there's a Hilton Terry School of Preaching, a smaller preaching school that opened at the Preston Crest Church in Dallas overseas, and Doyle Key was really the contact person there. You may be familiar with Doyle and that he passed. And so George paid a visit down there, and it's a way that both Face and George could offer some service for the Lord's work being done, just to let them know what was taking place. That's not a school that we're overseeing, but it's an active mission work that a supporter of our work was involved, and their elders said, hey, if there's any way we can understand what's going on. Well, Gabriel's just an incredible guy. He's so quiet, but when he got up there to preach, I think this picture demonstrates he brought it, and is an incredible guy. Then graduation takes place as they proceed down. I had an opportunity to share messages that many of you provided ahead of time. Each graduate received printed about 12 pages of printed messages of encouragement from many of you, and read a special message both from the FACE chairman and Bill and Doug on behalf of the elders that was read to them and interpreted in about 4 languages. So, and you sounded great in all 4 languages. But I know that meant a lot to the graduates to hear that and to hear the strong words that they got. As they received their diploma, then also they had an opportunity to receive an envelope like we might get in a graduation here in the U.S. Now, hey, I was 18 once when I graduated, and I liked envelopes. I knew usually what was in them. And thanks to the ladies here, there were several ladies that participated with Mary. Our graduates had that experience as well. Here's one story. So this young man was the #1 graduate. Each year they have basically who finishes at the top of the class in terms of their scores, their proficiencies. He's from Burkina Faso. He's been at school 3 years. 5 years ago, he was a very active practicing Muslim in Burkina Faso. And he had an injury and was in the hospital and was listening to preaching on the radio and essentially decided he wanted to know Jesus. And he was studying his Bible. And he responded when he got out. And now this person on the radio was not one of our graduates. And as George explained it, the guy said, well, okay, great, you're a preacher now. Now go here to Cotonou and start doing this and raising money here and doing that, and basically putting him out to work. And some of our graduates were also involved with him, and they essentially took him under their wing and said, you're going over to the Ivory Coast for about 6 months to get away from this, and we're just going to work with some of our guys and kind of get a clear head and assess it. And then he went to school, and George said he's been a model student, and I can tell you this guy's full of passion. So he will be doing the Lord's work in a Muslim country, and it's just a power of both God's Word as well as the program that we have together. And then always the most powerful scene and powerful thing is once those graduates complete their ceremony, they're prayed over fervently, and for their safety, their well-being, and it's just an incredible moment. And they sure were happy as well. The Alumni Association, we had a meeting with them, and essentially their big roles is the 3 R's. They're to retain the graduates, to help recruit for new students, and what's the other R? Retraining, I'm sorry, that's the big one. So as they more or less train the trainer, our guys have been out in the field and they need a little refresher course, they call it. So this Alumni Association is going on its 3rd year, and we met with them and developing some further plans, and we've been blessed with a grant from the Carson Meyer Foundation, and a portion of that is dedicated to preaching equipment. And so they were asking the same question that we needed to really come up with an answer for, and it was just a tremendous thing, which is what are the resources that are needed, what are the loudspeakers, what are the preaching equipment, what's the tangible things, because we've got a grant, and God's blessed this work, and essentially we need to spend it. And so it's a matter of being good stewards with those resources. Had a gospel meeting. So went out to Mono, and it's a village about an hour away, and at one of the newer church buildings that was under the Irene Morgan legacy. So this is one of the church buildings that was constructed, and it was a gospel meeting and area-wide, and so 9 congregations were represented. It's about 150 people there, and that in itself is an incredible experience. To be welcomed in the way we did, but to participate in it. On the right end, you'll see one of the mosques there, in that village as we go in. This is on the corner. This is a voodoo shrine. That was the one thing that George says, hey, you got to quit taking pictures or at least be a little more sly about it. He said, you're essentially very disrespecting them, and he said, I'll put it politely, they'll run you out of here if you're lucky. But I had to get a few pictures because we needed to see it. And this is a shot of the church building itself. As you can see, it's right on the primary corner of that village, and as people were gathering around. 3 of us were able to give lessons that day, and Todd closed it with a very strong message, what must I do to be saved? The adults up front, kids in the back, and everyone was paying attention, and everyone was involved, and it was hot in there. There were 3 responses from the meeting, so we set off to the water because there's not a baptistry. And the young man, the preacher had been working with him for some time, but they responded that day, and here they are sharing their confession. And the baptism taking place, and it was just a real surreal scene. It was the first century, if you will. Here we go to the lakeside, and the fishermen are out there with their nets, the wooden boats, and the baptism taking place. I mean, these are the credible things that they'll happen when you go. So I'd encourage you to go and see this. But it's also the first century meets the 21st century, because you may be able to see a little dot in the middle right above the preacher. And that's the drone. So it was a 4K video going on during this wonderful thing, but it wasn't disruptive. They liked it, but really excited to see some of the things that came out of it. The Irene Morgan legacy, again, the 20 church buildings in this program, 18 are completed right now. Part of our involvement with that was to meet with the local building committee, which we did during this trip. We had a lot of things to work through with them, to visit several of the locations and see the construction. Very pleased with that. And this is the African committee outside of one of the buildings. You'll notice to the little outcropping there, that is the preacher's office. So that was an addition onto some of the original plan, but very necessary in the preacher's office. We did a little work while we're there too, and working with the local congregation at, this was in Hinvey, and one of the congregations that had the church building constructed, and we went and painted, and we did that with them. I was just on the way to the project, and I don't think you can hear it, but George said, he said, well, we're on the highway now, but when we get on the back road, it'll get slick and wet. I said, this isn't? And he's like, oh, no. No, but you can see the van from the school up ahead full of paint. And, you see a lot of babies on the back of those motorbikes. But God works overtime protecting people there. Our team. And Mary with those windows. She did a great job with that. I think she saw that paint coming from the other side and it was tearing her up. But she honed in on those windows and just did a wonderful job. One of the jobs was rolling. And it's one of the few skills that I have in terms of that kind of thing. And I said, boy, it'd be a lot quicker and we could really make some progress if we had one of these extension poles. And I looked, and even the roller wasn't threaded on the bottom. I thought, well, they don't use those here, and they didn't really understand. And I was explaining it to them, you use an extension, and this, that, and the other. I said, I probably could have brought a broomstick from the guest house. And no sooner as I get done talking, and they're off in the bush, and they come back, and that boy pulled that knife out, and he went to working on it. And so got an extension, and they all made extensions right out of the tree. And sure enough, it was a good deal. People in the community showing up, the youngsters, and that's always just an incredible interim thing. This was some of the fruit that we received as a gift from the gospel meeting, and to see others partaking into that. And then we concluded that day of service with a devo and singing with the natives. This is the building completed in the painting. just to share that this continues to be a need and an opportunity to be involved, and that the Bible distribution program, the free Bibles for the church members as well as for the preachers to use in their evangelistic efforts. And if you're on the Facebook group, They Need Bibles, you'll get daily updates of what's going on in the field from them themselves. This is a story of a young Muslim lady received a Bible, and George says they'll normally not post for pictures, so please don't share it. This is the story of just one courageous person who needs a Bible, and thank God for this free Bible distribution program. And these were the six different languages. These were Bibles on campus that are being stamped, and as the preachers get them to take them out in the field. I just wanted to wind it down with some equipping the saints, and that's part of what FACE does, is helping equip these men and their efforts in evangelizing, but many of you did as well and continue to. So here are some of the graduates coming in to receive items. Now, in our adult class, we took a shared contribution for Lord's Supper supply, so just want to share with you all what went there. And Todd and his congregation brought some clothing for them to have. Each student graduating and new ones coming in receives a full set of textbooks. So having a library and having to constantly photocopy and keep that up is no longer an issue, and everyone receives full sets of books. And there they are. I'm going to advance that. Maybe that's my timer. Receiving some of the clothing and supplies and the books. We will conclude it. This is them after receiving that. Well, we don't have the audio in it. So basically, they just broke out in a song of thanks. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. And as well as in English and in French. They're sincere, and it's touching. And those are just those little experiences I'm so thankful to have been a part of. And I'll just close it with that. Thank you. And you recognize these shirts from the Bible Bowl. And a little misprint on the Bible Bowl. It worked for good. It works for good. God works for good. And so there are many African children with Benton Church of Christ Bible Bowl t-shirts. Thank you for that. Thank you, Jody, for the heads up on that. And we just stuffed all of them we could with us. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer after class. I know the bell's rung, and want to encourage you to go next year, encourage you to get involved any way you can, and mainly just thank you for this opportunity. Thank you. We're dismissed. I forgot something. It's too late now, isn't it?
So what time
is it too late? I'll do that tonight.
Are they going to be the same time next year?
Yeah, in July. Sure will be.